Okay, this one is very sweet. This is when I first arrived in Berkeley, where he finally sent me about 5 years after this conversation. He sent me to Shambhala training, to direct Shambhala training, and he asked me to go to Berkeley to represent him there and to direct his center. And so I had just arrived a few months earlier in Berkeley, California, where I was to remain for the next 9 years, through his death and beyond that. So I'd just gotten there. It was my birthday, and my mother and father had come to visit, and Rinpoche had come to teach the same weekend. Standing in the front yard of the house Helen and I are renting in Berkeley, my mother gives a childlike exclamation of joy. "I think I'll use these," she says. She cuts a few bright yellow tiger lilies in full bloom by the white picket fence. I have lived here for less than a year, sent by Rinpoche to teach the Dharma and guide the Shambhala Meditation Center a mile down the road. "Oh, and these," she exclaims, bending over a lemon bush with fully ripe yellow globes of fruit on some of its branches and not yet ripe green ones on others. She snips a few of each, cuts some stalks of fresh young bamboo by the back porch, and puts all of her trophies carefully in a large white plastic bucket filled with water. My mother and father are visiting me here for the first time. And by a confluence of what the Tibetans call tendril, auspicious coincidence, Rinpoche is visiting the meditation center this very same weekend. He is here to teach an advanced intensive training program, and by a further auspicious coincidence, it's also my birthday. This evening, our community will greet Rinpoche with an exhibition and performances of artistic work of various kinds. Paintings, sculptures, photographs, poetry, music, weavings, and flower arrangements. The entire circumference of the meditation hall is filled with these offerings from his earnest and devoted students. My mother, though not deeply trained in the art of flower arranging, wants very much to make her own offering for this occasion. She has been an avid and very competent gardener since my early childhood, and is never happier than when working in her garden, her hands in the soil, lovingly planting beds of flowers every spring. "There, what do you think?" she turns and asks my father. They are standing together now in the meditation hall an hour or so before the start of the exhibition. The lemon branches and tiger lilies from our front yard are now arranged in rich profusion in a dark green ceramic ikebana container. "It's fine," says my father approvingly, but with a hint of impatience. "Don't fuss with it so much. It's fine, just as it is." My mother moves one of the tiger lilies in the vase again, like a girl brushing hair out of her eyes. She stands back, appraises it once more, and then lets it be. "Who did this one?" asks Rinpoche, his gentle, high-pitched voice radiating into the hall an hour later. He's been moving from one piece to another, stopping briefly at times, often not pausing at all as he slowly circles the big room. He is dressed elegantly in a dark suit. His tie shines with its pattern of black and gold. As the head of the center, I walk beside him, also in a dark suit, feeling more relaxed and at ease than I generally do in his presence, as if he and I are sharing a secret. We are standing in front of my mother's flower arrangement. He makes a very definite stop there and looks at it appraisingly. How could he have known? Merely coincidence, I hastily remind myself. Don't make a mystical big deal out of all this. "I did," my mother calls out perkily from the other side of the room. Rinpoche turns slowly in the direction of her voice. Now she has her hand up like a schoolgirl waiting to be called upon to give the right answer. He looks at her without speaking and then beckons to her with his index finger. She walks over to him, standing now to his left as I stand to his right. "Sir, this is my mother," I say. "Hello." Rinpoche looks at my mother and smiles with disarming warmth and kindness. This is their first meeting in person. She seems to melt a little and then gathers herself together again to speak. "Hello, I'm so happy to meet you, Rinpoche. Is it Rinpoche? Did I pronounce it right?" She becomes a little flustered. He smiles again and nods in the affirmative. "What inspired you to make this?" he asks. "I wanted to offer a gift for my son and his wife in their new home here and on his birthday," she answers confidently. All the materials for the arrangement were growing right in the yard of their home. Mm-hmm. Rinpoche listens, looking at her intently. I can feel her become a little self-conscious again, but she continues gamely. California has so many beautiful flowers at every time of year, she enthuses. Yes, he agrees. He turns back to her flower arrangement and studies it for a few moments. Do you have any suggestions for me about the arrangement, I mean? My mother asks, as if she wants to grasp every possible thread of meaning from this long-awaited encounter. Then Rinpoche turns to me and asks me to bring him the ikebana clippers, which are lying on a nearby table. I fetch them for him. He turns again to my mother. May I? He asks her with exquisite courtesy. She nods her consent. He turns to her arrangement, clippers in hand. He snips here, then there, maybe a half a dozen swift cuts in all. After each one, I catch the severed branch and put it aside. In no more than a minute, he is finished. My mother looks at his handiwork. Her eyes are wide with amazement. The yellow tiger lilies gleam out into the room, freed from behind their veil. The yellow and green globes of fruit on the lemon branches glow like colored glass balls on a Christmas tree. They too have been set completely free to shine as themselves. And around them, the green bamboo foliage rises gracefully up to support them without crowding them any longer. Rinpoche hands the clippers back to me. How did you do that? My mother asks him. Her voice is charged with wonder and astonishment. I think it's just a matter of opening things up a little, he answers. Opening things up? Yes, he says. He touches my mother's hand tenderly. Flowers are like children. They do best when you give them plenty of space. Just to remind people of one line from the introduction that I read, because that story with my mother illustrates what I said in the beginning, which was this. This memoir is inspired by the simple reality that I was fortunate enough to be alive when he was alive, that in every interaction with him, he seemed in some utterly uncanny way to embody the raw truth at the very heart of life, and that at very rare and always unexpected time, I seem to have been paying attention when he did. Thank you all very much. Thank you so much.
So lovely. If anyone wants a book signed, it's really, I think, the easiest when we have this many people. If you could all line up back that way, just so everyone doesn't get smushed in this area. Here are some pens, and thank you all so much for coming. I really, really, really would like to thank you all. And is there a Brenda in the audience by